If you're struggling to make custom shapes in React Konva, then this course is for you. In this course, I will show you how you can make a multi-point line in Konva just like in ExcaliDraw, which you'll be able to edit later on as well. Then you will be able to learn how you can make any kind of custom shape you want using scribbling or free drawing. At the end, we'll see how we can make a custom crown component using the Konva's shape component and the scene function. So stick around till the end of the video to learn all of this. Subscribe to the channel and let's get into it. Okay, so I've removed everything from the app and I just have the action buttons. So an action button for adding a crown shape, for scribbling, for drawing a multi-point line, and for selection. First of all, I will teach how to add a custom shape like a crown shape and how we'll be able to draw that shape. So basically, React Konva provides some shapes which we can use to draw on the canvas, and those shapes includes rectangle, circle, arrow, line, etc. But if you want to draw a custom shape, then we'll basically have to use the shape component that React Konva provides and basically use its scene function to tell the shape component that, hey, you have to make this kind of a shape. And inside the scene function, we'll basically have access to Canvas API and we can, go nuts with it. We can literally draw whatever we want. So let's do that. So first of all, I will make a crown component and then I will pass some dummy values to the crown components. I'm like dummy X, Y, etc. And basically inside it, I will have the shape component. So let me go here. I will go here, crown. Inside this crown folder, I'll make a crown.tsx file. Let me make the component. Great. Now this crown component would return a shape component from React Konva. This crown component would expect some props and its type would be node config. So node config would basically have the types for a generic shape. So X, Y, height, width, etc. Fill, color. So yep, I will spread all the props here. Great. And then I would have a scene function here. So scene function I will define here because obviously that wouldn't be variable. The scene function would basically define the shape of the shape. So in this case it would be a crown and I will draw that. So I'll just add a scene function here. Let me then make the scene function. So this scene function would basically get two params. So the first would be context. So I'll get the context type from Konva, and context would basically be an object with the Canvas API available plus a Konva API available as well. So we'll be able to use Canvas API functions like line2, etc. to basically build the shape, and then we'll also have access to some custom Konva functions as well, which I will use in a moment. And then the next param would be shape. This would be of type shape. So basically let me change the type. So it would be shape type. Let me place it here. So basically this shape variable would have access to all the props that would be passed in the shape component. So whatever props I will pass in the shape component like X, Y, height, width, I'll be able to get these here so that I can use those to basically build my shape. So first of all, I will like to get the height and width from the shape param. So I'll say const height is equal to shape.height. Great. Then const width is equal to shape.width. Then basically I will use a canvas function from the context because context has access to the Canvas API. So I'll say context.begin path. So basically this would begin our shape. Let me place the crown component here so that we can see the crown shape being made. So I'll place the crown component here. Let me pass in some dummy values. So I'll say X should be 50, Y should be 50, height should be 200, width should be 400. Great. So right now if I go here, you cannot see anything because I didn't really, draw anything here. So begin path would basically be like I have a drawing board and I have decided to draw. This wouldn't really do anything. So now I will basically do the drawing portion. So then I'll say context.move to, this is another Canvas API function, so 0, 0. So basically when I say I want to move to 0, 0, basically this is like I have moved my drawing pen to the coordinates 0, 0. Now 0, 0 is basically relative to the X and Y position of the shape component. So right now I have passed x and y to be 50-50. So when I say I want to move to 0, 0, this 0, 0 is relative to that 50-50. So that would mean I am basically moving my pen to 50-50, x and y. So that would do that. Then basically I will start drawing from that particular point. So I will use the quadratic curve to function. So basically using that function, I'll be able to draw a curve. So basically I want to draw a crown shape like this. So first of all, I want to draw this curve, then I want to draw this curve, then basically a line, then another line, and then I'll close the path. So that would basically make me a crown shape. So for making the curve, I will use the quadratic curve to function. Now the quadratic curve to function basically expects 4 params. The first 2 params are the coordinates for where the curve should be. So this point. So this will basically define the middle of the curve. And then the next 2 params are the x and y coordinates of the end of the curve. So the starting point of the curve would be wherever we are in the canvas. So right now we are at 0, 0. So the starting point of the curve would be that. Then the first 2 params of the quadratic curve to function would define where the middle of the curve should be, and then next 2 params would define where the end of the curve should be. So what I will do is I will say that the middle point should be width divided by 4, because you can see that this is the whole width and I want the middle point to be here. So I'll say width divided by 4, because this is 0.25% of the entire width. So this is where the point should be, and the y position of this particular point should be height divided by 2. So that would be like the first 2 points, and the next 2 points would be the x value should be width divided by 2, because as far as the x position is concerned, it is in between. So it would be width divided by 2, and y would be basically 0, because y starts from here. So this would be the third and fourth param of the quadratic curve to function. So let me add that. So I'll go here, I'll say context dot quadratic curve to function. The first point would be width divided by 4, second would be height divided by 2, then this would be width divided by 2, and y would be 0, as I just showed you. Okay, so I've added a stroke color here as well, so that we can see whatever I'm drawing. Like right now we weren't able to see anything, so still we cannot see anything, and the reason is because I am not filling in the color. So the canvas has its own methods for filling in the color as well, but we are not going to use them. So basically we are going to use a custom Konva function, fill stroke shape. So I'll say context dot fill stroke shape, and I'll pass in the shape which I'm getting as a param in the scene function. Now you can see that there is a line here. So this stroke color I passed is basically a dark yellow color, as you can see here. So the curve has been made. Now I'll make the second curve. So for the second curve, similarly, this would be the starting point, so we don't have to worry about it. The first and second param would be this particular point. So this particular point, the x of this particular point should be 0.75 into width, because this is 3/4 of the entire width, and the y would be again height divided by 2. For this particular point, the end point, the third and fourth param of the quadratic curve to function, y would again be 0, and x would be the entire width, because this is the entire width. So yeah, let's do that. I'll go here, I'll copy this. Width should be multiply by 0.75. Height would be same. This would be the entire width, and this would be the same. So now if I go here, you can see this curve as well. Great. Now the rest of the stuff is simple. I will now use the line to function. So line to function, as it indicates, only expects 2 params. So the starting point would be wherever we are right now. So currently we are here at this particular point, and line to function would basically draw a line from the point where we are currently to the whatever the new point is. So the new point should be x should be equal to width, y should be equal to height, because this is the point. So I'll just say width and height. Great. Now again I'll draw a line, and this time, y would again be height, but x would be 0 because I'm trying to go here. So for this particular case, x would be 0 and y would be equal to the height. Now, just like there is a begin path function, there is also a close path function. So that would basically close the path and basically make a shape. So I'll go here, I will say close path. Great. Now we can see the crown shape has been made. Now here I've added a fill color as well. That is a slightly lighter yellow than the stroke. And basically this fill stroke shape function would fill the fill color here as well. So if I go here, you can see that, a crown shape has been made. It has a stroke and it also has a fill. So yeah, but this is obviously hard coded. Now I'll add the logic for basically making it dynamically. The way we'll do it is similarly to how I did it in the Paint app video. If you haven't watched it, you can go and watch it. And basically the concept in Konva is that there are 3 methods in the stage component. Stage component is basically the main component. And one is on stage mouse down. So whenever I would have my mouse down, that particular function would be called. So that is when I would start drawing the particular shape. So if the crown shape is selected, I have my mouse down, I'll basically initiate the drawing of the crown shape. Then whilst I have my mouse down and I am moving the mouse across the canvas, I would basically get the current coordinates x and y of wherever my mouse is, and then basically based on that I will calculate the new height and width of the crown, and that would basically seem like I'm drawing the crown. And when I will release my mouse, it would basically stop drawing it, and whatever the last values for the x and y and height and width of the crown were, it would basically leave it there, and we would have a crown drawing on our canvas. Great. So I'll go here, let me remove this, no need for this. Now I'll add 2 states. So the first state would be currently drawn shape, set currently drawn shape is equal to use state, and this would have a type of node config. Currently it would be undefined. And then I would have another state, drawings, set drawings, and this would be an array. Initially it would be an empty array. So basically whenever I would have the mouse down and I would be moving the mouse, I would basically update this state, and this state would be basically used to render the shape. And when I will leave the mouse, then I would basically set it to undefined and basically append that particular currently drawn shape object to drawings, so that I can draw multiple drawings and not just one shape. So yeah, first of all I'll go here and I would map it. So inside the layer component I would say drawings currently drawn shape dot map drawing, then if drawing dot name is equal to draw action dot crown, then I want to return crown component, and I want to basically spread the drawing here. Great. So basically whenever I would draw a crown shape, I would set the name of that to crown, so that I can basically use that later on to render the crown component here. Similarly for other components like free drawing or multi-point line, I will use that particular name. So this is done. Now here on stage mouse down, I am getting the x and y coordinates from the on stage mouse down function. So here I'll add a switch case, switch draw action. So basically the draw action is the state which is being set whenever I click on an icon button. So by default it is crown. So this draw action is just an enum with these 4 values. So crown, multi-point line, select and scribble. So select is not a drawing. We'll be able to select when we will click on this button, but basically these 3 are drawings, and based on the currently selected button I will use a switch case to see like, okay, this is a crown shape, then I will basically add these properties to this object so that I can make the crown shape. If it is, free line or something else, then, the respective properties would be different. So that is what I'm doing here. So here I'll say case draw action dot crown. If it is a crown, then I'll say set currently drawn shape to, I'll pass the x and y here, then height would be 1, width would be 1. Great. So initially when I would just click on the canvas, I want the height and width of the crown to be 1, because I've just clicked, and I would add a break statement here. Great. Similarly, let me copy this. I will go to the onstage mouse move function. I'll paste this. Yeah, I forgot to do one thing. Basically, I will have a ref which I need to add. So whenever I would place my mouse down, I would set the value of the ref to true, which would indicate that I have my mouse down. Similarly, when I will have my mouse up, I will set it to false. So basically, during the on mouse move function, I will check if the value is true. Then I will add the respective height and width properties to the crown so that I will be able to draw it. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. So I'll say const is paint ref is equal to use ref, and initially it would be false. When I would have my mouse down, where is it? Here, let me do it. So it would be false. When I would have a mouse up, I'm not drawing. Similarly, on mouse down, I will set it to true. Great. Here, if it's not true, then I want to return. Then I don't want to, basically change the state. So I want to use the previous state to just change the height and width based off the x and y coordinates I get. So I don't want to set an entirely new object. So here I'll say prev currently drawn shape. I'll spread the prev currently drawn shape. Here I'll say height should be y minus. So y is basically the current coordinate of my mouse. Prev currently drawn shape or 0. Similarly, dot y, my bad. And this width would be x minus prev currently drawn shape x or 0. Again, in the mouse down function, I should also pass the ID here. Also, I need to pass the name, which would be able to distinguish like which particular component should I render. I forgot that as well. Now, if I drag it, you can see that I am drawing the crown shape. But you can see that I am only able to draw one crown shape because I didn't add the logic for appending the drawing currently drawn shape to the drawings array in the on mouse up function. Okay, so here I'll say if currently drawn shape, then I want to set drawings to prev drawings. I will spread the prev drawings and then I will append the currently drawn shape here. Great. I also set the currently drawn shape as undefined because I have stopped drawing. Now I will be able to basically draw multiple crown shapes. Now the next thing I will want to do is I would want to give the user the ability to free draw using the line component. So basically scribbling, and I will basically use the close prop to basically at the end of the day close the shape when it is done, so that whatever scribbling you have done, it would show as a shape, and that can be a great tool in your drawing application. So let's do that. So that would be simple. First of all, I'll go here. I'll say if drawing.name is equal to line, no, not line, scribble, then I will render a line component. So line component is by default present in React Konva. I won't do any special thing, but I will use the closed prop and you'll basically get what I'm trying to do. So the line component expects a points array. Now this points array basically expects xy coordinates. So the first two panels would be xy coordinates for the first point, the next two would be the x and y coordinates for the second point, etc, etc. So basically using the same principle, when I would be moving my mouse here, I would basically append the x and y of wherever my mouse is currently to the points array of the line, and that would basically make a continuous line like I'm free drawing or scribbling. So you'll see that in a moment. So similarly, I'll just copy this, paste it here. This would be line, and instead of height and width, no, scribble, my bad. Instead of height and width, this particular line component hasn't got a height and width. I will use the points array, so I'll say points, and here I'll pass xy, xy. You can just pass x and y if you want to have just one point, but I want to have a thick point when I start drawing, so that is why I've done that. Your choice. So here I'll just copy this. This would be scribble, and instead of height and width, I'll just say points. It would be prev currently drawn shape points or empty array, and I'll append the new x and y. So basically I'm appending the new x and y in the points array. So spreading the previous one, adding the new x and y ones. I forgot to add the stroke, because for the ground component I had stroke and fill predetermined in the component, but for the line component you have to add a stroke. So the stroke would be stroke color. This is a constant. I will import it. So import stroke color from constants. Great. I'll also remove the x and y. The scribble doesn't really care about x and y. So that is good. Now if I go here, I select on the scribble, you can see that I can scribble. Great. But basically this is just like free drawing, but I can also convert it into a closed shape based on the starting and ending points, and I can only do that using the closed prop. For now, I'll just add the closed prop, and you will see that basically joins the starting and ending point by itself, and it basically becomes a shape. And basically now I can pass in a fill color as well. So let me go to the drawing portion here and let me pass the fill. So I'll say scribble bg. Let me import it. Great. Now let me redo it. So if I now draw something, you can see that it basically is attaching the starting and ending points using a line by itself, and basically filling in the color as well, which is great. But what I think is it makes sense for the closed prop to become true when I have stopped drawing. So basically for the currently drawn shape, I want that the closed prop should be false so that I can freely draw, and when I stop drawing, that is when it should close it and show the fill color. Yeah, here instead of closed true permanently, I'll say closed should be true if the drawing ID is not equal to currently drawn shape.id. So for the shapes I'm currently drawing, like closed should be false, but when I have stopped drawing it, then it should join the starting and ending points, which is great. So now if I select the scribble component and I am drawing, you can see that while I'm drawing, it isn't connecting the starting and ending points, and also isn't filling everything. But when I release the mouse, it basically connects the starting and ending points. It makes it a shape, the fill color is there and everything, and basically I can draw any kind of shape I want, and the user has a lot of flexibility. So yeah, that is a cool thing. You can add it in your drawing application. Okay, so now we will implement multi-point line component just like ExcaliDraw has. So if you click on the line component in ExcaliDraw and you click somewhere, then you will see that basically starts auto-completing that line. If you click on any other point in the canvas, then it basically completes that line, and then basically you can click on multiple points in the canvas and then you can create a multi-point line. But if you basically take your mouse cursor to the starting point and release it, then basically this becomes a shape, and this is a shape in which you can fill colors. Also you can basically select the select tool and basically move around the points to change the shape of this shape. So that is what we will build. So in order to build it, I will make a component, and inside that component I will use two Konva components. So the line component for the line, and then the circle component for these points, and then we'll basically add the logic so that we can make this exact thing. So first of all, I'll go here, I'll create a multi-point line component. So I'll go here, multi-point line, then here I'll create a new file. Great. Now this would expect props. So multi-point line props extends line config. So basically line config contains the types for the line component which Konva has. So for now I'm not adding anything, but I will add some things later on. And here I'll say this props should be of type multi-line props, and here I'll basically take in the props. Instead of this, I will get the line component from React Konva, and I will just spread the props. Then I will also pass some default things in this line component. So for example, the stroke color and stuff. So I'll say the stroke should be black, stroke width should be 2. Just like for the crown, I will for now place it here with some hard-coded values. You can see what is going on. So x would be 100, y would be 100, points would be 0, 0, 100, 100, 50, 150. So now if I go here, you can see a line here. Great. Now basically I will use the points which I'm passing here to map the circles which would be shown at the corners. So let's do that. Another thing, this line is for now very steep. So in order to give it a curvy look, I will pass a tension prop here. So I'll say tension should be 0.5. Now it looks better. Now from the rest, I will get the points here. I'll pass the points here directly. Great. Here I'll say const mapped points is equal to use memo. Basically I will use this mapped points array to map the points. Now the points are in the form that the first two items of the array, the items are at the 0th and 1st index are basically the x and y coordinates for the first point of the line. Then the second and third index points numbers are the coordinates for the x and y for the second point, etc. So I want to basically map that points array into a user-friendly format where add points is an array of object with x and y properties. So the first object has the x and y coordinates for the first point, the second object has the x and y coordinates for the second point, etc. So I want to make it simple. So I'll say const mapped points is equal to, for now it would be an array, its type would be x number, y number, and array. Great. Here I'll say if there are no points, then I want to return an array. If there are points, then I will iterate through them. So I'll say for let I is equal to 0, I should be less than points dot length, and then I plus equal to. So basically I am iterating the points array by incrementing I by 2 on every iteration, and basically the concept is that the same concept which I told you before. Mapped points dot push, x would be points I, y would be points I plus 1. So basically when I would be 0, x would be the 0th index value, y would be the first index value, then it would be incremented, I would become 2, x would be the value at the index 2, y would be the value at the index 2 plus 1, that is 3. So that is what I'm doing. Simple. It's just more user friendly format. I can use it to map the circles easier. So I'll say return map points. Great. So I'll get these and I will add a React fragment. I will move this line here. Now here I'll say mapped points dot map point return circle. So circle is the component from React Konva. Great. So here I will say x should be equal to point.x, y should be equal to point.y, so that it is basically centered at the coordinates where the line corners are. Then I will give the circle some styling as well. So radius would be 5, fill would be white, stroke color would be light bluish, so it would be hash 8986E3. Stroke width would be 1. Now you can see that the circles are present here, which is great, and they are basically in the form of a line, but they are not on the line exactly. And the reason is that I have passed x and y values to the multi-point line as well, and they are going inside the line. So I have to add the x and y of the line here as well, so that the circles are relatively positioned based on the points. So I will just do plus x. No, x can be undefined. So I'll do const x is equal to 0, y equal to 0 is equal to rest. Now it's okay. So if x and y are not present, then they should be 0. I'll add x and y here. Great. Now you can see that they are on top of the line. Now I'll basically add the logic for drawing the line, because right now it's hard coded. So I'll go here and I'll remove this. Great. So in order to draw this multi-point line, we'll have to use a different strategy, because for these shapes where we like place the mouse down and then we move the mouse around and we release the mouse, the strategy is different. So we basically have a ref, I set it to true when the mouse is down, then I create an initial state, then whenever I'm basically moving the mouse, I check if this is equal to true, then okay, otherwise I return, and then basically I, using the new y and x values of the cursor, update the height and width or whatever, and then when the mouse is lifted, then I set this ref to false, and then basically I set this to undefined, append the currently drawn shape in the drawings array. So that is simple, but drawing this multi-point line is different in a way that I am not dragging my mouse. I click somewhere and then basically it auto-completes the line till I click somewhere else, and then basically it auto-completes the line till I click somewhere else, and then basically it continues to draw the line till I go back to the original point and click there. So basically the approach of doing this would be entirely different. So for that I'll basically make a new ref. So I will say num multi-point line, num multi-point ref, and its initial value would be 0. So basically using this ref, I will keep track of how many points have I placed on the canvas for the line, and you'll see how it plays out. So first of all, here I will say if this ref has some value, so initially it would be 0, and it would be 0 when nothing is happening, but when I would place the first point, then we will know that I am about to start building the line. If its value is something other than 0, then I will just return. I don't want to basically care for this logic. Normally it would be 0, so when we will be drawing some other thing like a crown, etc., then we can take care of this logic. Otherwise we do not want to run this when I leave the mouse. So that is great. First step. Then I want to add the logic for when I click on the canvas, so when I have my mouse down. So let's add that. So here before this I'll say if draw action is equal to draw action dot line dot multi-point line. So multi-point line is basically the enum value which would be selected when we would click on that multi-point line button. So if it is that, then first I want to return. I don't want to do anything which is done below. Now I will check one thing more. If num multi-point ref is equal to 0, that is we haven't initialized making the line, then I want to initialize the state. So I'll say set currently drawn shape. I'll pass the ID, I'll pass the points, so XY, then the name would be draw action dot multipoint line, stroke would be stroke color, and then fill would be multi-point line PG. So right now I haven't done anything related to the fill, but when the line would be closed, we will use the closed prop to basically show a fill color just like we did for the scribble. We'll do it later. Let me add the constant here. Great. Now let me map it here. So I'll say if drawing name is equal to multi-point line, I want to return the multi-point line. Let me remove this. Yeah, actually forgot to also do one thing. When we will basically place the point, then we want to increment this as well, obviously, because it wouldn't always be 0. So this would be 1. So now if I go here, you can see that I can only place 1 point. Let me remove this. If I have a line, when I click, it adds a point. But when I am now moving my mouse around, then you can see that there is kind of an autocomplete line which is being shown between my mouse cursor and where I added the point. So now I have to add the logic for that. So for that, I'll have to go to the mouse move function, because basically now I'm moving the mouse. I'm not, clicking anywhere. So let's go there. Here I'll say if num multipoint ref dot current and draw action is equal to draw action dot multipoint line. So basically, if there is some point present on the canvas, that is when I will increment it. And draw action is equal to multipoint line, then I want to go here. Again, I want to return because I don't want to go below this. So here I'll say set currently drawn shape. I will receive a function here. So let me do this. So prev line would have type line config. Let me import it. Now here I will get the previous points. So previous points is equal to prev line points or array, and I will spread this. Basically, I'm making a copy of this because I will mutate it. I don't want to mutate the original points. I will make a copy of it and then change it. So what I will do is, based on the points length, I will basically add another point which would serve as a, an autocomplete line or something. So right now I have 1 point, right? So 1 point means that the points array has 2 items. So the first item is the x coordinate of that point, the second is the y coordinate of that point. So what I will do is, if I have 1 point, then I want to basically attach this x and y to the second and third index, which would basically serve as an auto connection line between my mouse cursor, which is this, and the original point. Similarly, if I have 2 points, then what I will do is I will want to set this x and y to the 4th and 5th indexes, because that would be served as the third point or the autocomplete line or whatever. So that is what I will do. So I will say const points length is equal to num multipoint ref dot current. So whatever the value is, that is how many points there are on the canvas for the multipoint line. So here I'll just say prev points length multiplied by 2 is equal to x, and multiply by 2 plus 1 would be y. And then I will return the prev line, because this is the setter. I have to return the updated line, but points would be the updated points. So if I go here now and I click somewhere, now if I take my mouse somewhere, you can see that there is kind of an autocomplete line between the recent point I have added and wherever I'm taking my mouse cursor. Now I have to add the logic for when I add another point, because right now I only added the logic for the first point, but now I have to add the logic for when I add a second point. So let's do that, second or third, not first. So again, I will go to the on stage mouse down function. Here I'll say else. So this was the logic for when there is no point. So basically I add a whole new object. Now I have to modify the previous object. So this is simple. I'll just say set currently selected shape, prev line. This would be spread prev line. Prev line would be of type line config. And then here I'll say points. This should be set currently drawn shape. Here I'll have points, and just like I did here. Where is that? Yep, I'll get this, and basically I will append a new x and y, because now I will add a new point whenever I will click on a line. So I'll do this, and basically I will add the new x and y here. Great. Now basically whenever I would click somewhere, it would basically add another point and an autocomplete line or etc. Now I have to add the logic for one thing. So whenever I am getting close to the first point, so whenever the most recent point is very close to the first point, then I want to snap the two circles together, which would show that I want to close the shape. So let's add the snapping logic, because there is no way where I click somewhere and these 2 points would be exactly the same. So this snapping feature is a good thing. So I'll add this in the on stage mouse function. So I'll check if the latest point is close to the first point by 7 pixels, both from the x and y axis. Then I will basically set the value of the last point to the first point. So basically it will look like it has snapped. So I will go to the on stage mouse move function again. Here I'll say if the absolute difference of the first point minus x is greater than 7, not greater than, less than, and the same thing, but the second point and y. So basically the first point is the x coordinate for the first point, the second point in the points array is the y coordinate of the first point, and then basically x and y are where the cursor is. So if their difference is less than 7 pixels, then I'll copy this, I'll place it here. So basically this should be equal to prev points 0. This would be equal to prev points 1. So basically if the difference is too small, then I want to set the new x coordinate to the x coordinate of the first point, and I want to set the new y coordinate to the y coordinate of the first point. And here I'll do else. So I'll place this in the else. So if they are not too close, then do whatever was being done previously. So now if I go too near to the first point, you'll see that it snaps, which is great. So when it snaps, basically the x and y coordinates of the first and last point are literally equal. So what I will do is, if now I click on the stage mouse down function, I will check if the values of x, y of the first point and the last point are equal, and there is a certain number of points there, like 3 or 2, then I want to close the shape. So then I will take the currently drawn shape, append it to the drawings array, set it to undefined, do the exact same thing which I have done for the other shapes in the on stage mouse up function. So I will do the same thing. So yep, I will go to the on mouse down function. Here in the else, I'll say if num multipoint ref dot current is greater than equal to 3. So basically I want that at least there are 3 points on the canvas, and that is when I should be able to close the line, otherwise not. So if there are more than 3 points, and currently drawn shape points 0 is equal to currently drawn shape points, I'll use the add function, at -2. -2 is basically the second atom from the end. So that is basically the x coordinate of the last point. And I'll copy the same thing. This would become 1. This would become -1. So the point at first index is basically the y coordinate for the first point. The point at the last index is basically the y coordinate for the last point. So if there are 3 or more points, the x and y coordinates for the first and last point are equal, then basically I want to do the same thing which is being done in the on stage mouse up function. So I will grab this and place it here, and also just like in the stage mouse up function I was setting the isPaintRef to false, I will basically set this to 0. Great. So now if I go to the first point and I click on it, now you can see that the shape has been made. Great. Now I can also fill in a color and stuff in this line, and yeah, so basically I will just copy this and place it here and it would work. So now you can see that there is a blue color in the multi-point line shape that we created. Great. Okay, so now another thing, I only want to show the points when I am drawing the multi-point line or when I have selected the multi-point line. So here I have the selection tool, and whenever I click on a shape, basically I have this on shape click function, and I'm just doing some basic selection. So I'm setting a state where I am passing in the node and the attributes, and I am basically adding the node to the transformer so that it can be selected. So basically what I want is when the shape is selected or when I'm drawing it, then and then only should I basically show the points, otherwise I shouldn't show the points. So that is what I will do. That is what's happening in ExcaliDraw as well. So for that I will add a prop. So activate points, it would be a boolean prop, and I will get the activate points prop here. If activate points is false, then I don't want to map the circles. Simple. So here let me spread the props here. So this would basically add the on click in this line. So activate point should be true if the drawing ID is equal to currently drawn shape ID. So while I'm drawing or while it is selected. So while drawing ID is equal to currently selected shape ATTR's ID. So you can see that the points have gone away. This is great. Now if I select it, then you will see that the point appeared. This is great. Now I'll add some logic for the circles. The circles should show some sort of effect when I hover over them. Also its pointer should be equal to cursor when I hover over the circle, etc. So here you can see if I let's say leave it, if I hover over the circle while the selection tool is on, you can see that it has a nice effect which shows that I'm on top of the circle. So I want to implement that. So for that what I will do is I will add another circle here in the multi-point line, and whenever I would hover over this circle, I will basically set the x and y of that particular hover circle to this circle, and it would have a higher radius. So it would basically be at the bottom of the circle, but it would basically have the same effect as you can see in ExcaliDraw. So what I will do is I will have a circle here. Its radius would be bigger than this circle, so its radius would be 9. Its fill would not be white, it would be like slight bluish. So AFA BEE, and initially it would not be visible, so false, and it would have a ref. So ref would be hover ref. Let me make this ref. So I'll go here, cost hover ref is equal to use ref null. Its type would be any. Let me import it. Great. Now basically I would go here and I would add some functions here, on mouse over and on mouse out. So whenever I would be on top of a mouse using the x and y coordinates of that particular circle, I will set the x and y coordinates of this hover circle, and you would see the effect in action. So here I'll say on mouse over e.target.set attr. So for this particular circle which I will hover over, I will add a fill color. So currently it's white, but I will change it. So I'll say it should be EEE. So it is like slight grayish. I will set the cursor to pointer because I'm on top of the circle, and here I would set the ref x and y attributes. So I will say set attrs. Here I'll pass an object. So I'll say x should be e.target.x, y should be e.target.y, and visible should be true. So it should be visible. Cool. Similarly, I will copy this and paste it here. This would be on mouse out. So the fill would go back to white. Cursor would go back to default. And I would just set the visible to false. Also, whenever the activate points prop would change, I would also want to set the cursor back to default. So I will say activate points document.body.style.cursor is equal to default. Now if I go here, you can see that whenever I hover over any circle, you can see a nice effect just like in ExcaliDraw. One more thing, while I'm drawing a shape, I don't want this selection thing to show because it's annoying and it doesn't look good. So I will only want to show it when I have selected a already made shape. So I can do that. First, let me make this shape. So what I will do is I will only show this if the shape is selected. So I will add a is selected prop as well. So is selected, add and is selected would go here. Boolean, great. Here I'll go and I'll say is selected would be true when the drawing ID would be equal to current selected shape.id. So right now it's selected, so you can see the hover effect in action. But while I'm drawing it, you'll see that it doesn't appear, which is great. It only shows when I select the image. Now everything is done. The last thing which is remaining is I should be able to change the shape of this line when I drag a point. So right now if I pass draggable on the circle, let me go here. Yeah, here if I pass draggable true, I would be able to change the circle's position, but the line is not changing. So what I want to do is whenever I'm dragging any point, I want to basically change this particular point which is corresponding to that point so that the line changes as well along with it. So let's do that. So I will go here, I'll say on drag move. So whenever I'm dragging it, I will get the X, so I will get the Y, target.y. I would also like to do the exact same thing here so that it moves along with the current X and Y points of the circle. So whenever I'm dragging, I also want to show this hover ref. So this would be X, this would be Y, great. Now here I would like to basically change the points based on the position of this circle. So this circle has an index, right? So based on an index, so let's say I am moving the circle which is on index 0. That means I need to change the points 0 and 1 because these are the X and Y coordinates of the line and the point. Similarly, if the circle is at index 2, then that means that I need to basically change the indexes 4 and 5 actually, because those would be the X and Y coordinates of the circle. So that is what I need to do. So calculate the X and Y of this particular point with respect to the index. So basically I will pass in a callback and I will pass the updated points in that callback. So that would be great. I'll say const new points is equal to points or array. I will draw brackets. Here I'll say new points index into 2 is equal to X. New points index into 2 plus 1 is equal to Y. And on point drag new points. So basically on point drag would be a function callback. So it would come here. It would basically expect as a param new points, which would be of the type number array. Here I'll pass that on point drag function. So new points. Here I'll say set drawings, prev drawings dot map drawing if drawing dot id is equal to current selected shape dot attrs dot id. So basically for the currently selected shape I would update these points. So I'll say return drawing and new points would go here. Otherwise I would just want to return the drawing. So now if I drag a point, you will see that I am able to change the shape of the line. Great. So yeah, in this tutorial you were able to build a crown shape, a custom filled shape using scribbling, and a custom multi-point line just like ExcaliDraw has. I hope you like it. If you liked it, please make sure to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends who are also using Konva so that they can learn this incredible feature as well. As always, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.